I did not realize how tense paying the bill felt until I stopped tipping. In America, the meal does not end when the plate is cleared. It ends when the evaluation begins. You reach for the check and your brain switches modes. Was the service attentive enough? Was it fast enough? Did they deserve 15% or 20%? You are not only paying for food, you are calculating someone's income. That moment lasts maybe 30 seconds, but it carries weight. The server knows it. You know it. The smile at the end is not neutral. It is loaded. Then I moved to Australia, and the first time I paid, something strange happened. Nothing. No tip line, no percentage math, no screen asking me to choose how generous I wanted to be, just a total. I paid and walked out, and my body felt lighter in a way I did not expect. That absence revealed tension I never knew existed. The relief was immediate and confusing. I had been carrying evaluation stress at every meal without realizing it was optional, without realizing some places simply remove that weight entirely. The first moment of paying without tipping felt almost wrong, like I had forgotten something important. Then it felt liberating. In the United States, tipping is framed as rewarding good service, but it also creates pressure on both sides of the table. The server performs knowing their wage depends on your mood. You dine knowing your opinion affects their pay. That dynamic shapes behavior. Smiles feel amplified. Check-ins feel strategic. Enthusiasm feels rehearsed. It is not fake. It is survival inside a system built on variability. In Australia, hospitality workers are paid a strong hourly wage under national labor laws. Their income does not depend on your generosity. That single structural difference changes the tone of the entire room. The waiter is not managing your satisfaction for financial survival. They are doing a job that is already compensated. The atmosphere feels calmer because the stakes of each interaction are lower. Service becomes about doing the job well, not about performing for uncertain pay. That removes anxiety from both sides. The worker is not worried about rent based on your mood. You are not worried about calculating fairness. The transaction becomes simple. That simplicity creates space for actual human interaction instead of financial theater. The first time Australian service felt different, I almost misread it. The waiter did not hover. They did not interrupt mid-bite to ask if everything was amazing. They brought the food, checked once, and left us to enjoy the table. At first, it felt distant. Then I realized it felt respectful. I was not being monitored. I was being trusted. The absence of performative friendliness created space. Conversation flowed without constant interruption. No one rushed us out for table turnover. No one tried to upsell aggressively. The interaction felt equal. I was not a king. I was a guest. That subtle shift changes how you behave too. You relax, you speak normally, you stop ranking someone's performance in your head. The dining experience becomes about connection at your table, not evaluation of the person serving it. You stop performing gratitude. You stop managing someone else's feelings about their work. You simply exist in the space without the psychological weight of determining someone's income. That freedom feels strange at first if you have never experienced it. Then it feels obvious, natural, like how it should have always been. There is also a power dynamic embedded in tipping culture that many people never question. When one person controls another person's income in real time, hierarchy is present whether you acknowledge it or not. Even generous customers participate in it. In Australia, that hierarchy flattens. You pay the listed price. The worker earns their wage regardless of your mood. There is no invisible test happening. The removal of that test removes tension. Over time, you notice something else. You stop feeling responsible for someone else's financial stability during a casual meal. That responsibility might sound small, but repeated daily across millions of interactions, it builds cultural stress. When I stopped tipping, I stopped performing generosity on demand. I simply paid for food. And that simplicity rewired how I think about service worldwide. The mental space freed by not calculating tips feels substantial once you notice it. You are not constantly doing math. You are not wondering if you tipped enough. You are not worried about judgment. The transaction ends cleanly. That clean ending allows you to remember the meal itself rather than the anxiety of the final moment. What surprised me most was not the system. It was my own reaction. I did not feel guilty walking out without leaving extra money. I did not feel anxious about whether I had tipped enough. I felt clear. Transparent pricing creates psychological clarity. The menu price is the real price. There is no after calculation, no moral scoreboard. Some argue tipping guarantees better service. my experience suggested something different. When wages are stable, service becomes consistent rather than strategic. It is not about impressing high tippers. It is about doing the job well. And when money leaves the immediate interaction, the only thing left is human behavior. That behavior felt more neutral, more grounded, and in many cases more genuine. It made me question whether I had been confusing performance with hospitality all along. Whether the enthusiasm I valued in American restaurants was actually stress disguised as friendliness. Whether real hospitality requires removing financial dependency from human interaction. The difference became obvious once I lived it. One system asks workers to earn dignity through performance. The other grants dignity as baseline. This is not about declaring one country right and the other wrong. It is about examining how systems shape psychology. Tipping culture creates negotiation. No tipping removes negotiation. In one system, the bill ends with evaluation. In the other, it ends with closure. After months in Australia, I realized I no longer braced for the final moment of the meal. I paid, stood up, and left without replaying the interaction. That absence of tension changed how I see restaurants everywhere. The question is not whether tips are generous. The question is what kind of relationship you want when you sit at a table. Do you want to manage and reward service? Or do you want to share space with someone who is already valued by the system they work in? The answer shapes more than the bill. It shapes the culture of everyday interactions, the emotional texture of public life, the way we understand dignity and work. Neither system is perfect, but only one removes the power dynamic from a simple meal. Only one lets both parties be fully human without financial dependency shaping every smile, every interaction, every moment of service. The longer I stayed in Australia, the more I realized this was not only about restaurants, it was about how a society defines dignity. When workers are paid fairly as a baseline, generosity becomes optional rather than required for survival. That changes how you see everyday exchanges. You stop measuring kindness in percentages. You stop assuming friendliness must be earned with cash. You start noticing tone, eye contact, and respect without filtering them through money. When I returned to the United States for a visit, the first time the payment screen flipped around with preset tip options, I felt the old tension return instantly. My brain began calculating before I even processed the amount. That reflex showed me how deeply the system conditions behavior. Living in Australia did not make me anti-tipping. It made me aware of the emotional layer attached to it. It made me question whether hospitality should feel like a performance review or a shared human moment. And once you see that difference, you cannot unsee it. You cannot go back to calling it normal. You cannot pretend that constant evaluation is just how things are. Some systems value workers. Others make workers earn value meal by meal.